In this video, I'm going to show you an ecom business with massive potential for organic traffic. And this is actually what we sent through to the potential client. But we see huge potential for this business and also major red flags where if they don't act on this now, they're going to lose their traffic. And so I think this will be super interesting for anyone who wants to grow their traffic and also anyone who might be unaware of some of the issues that your website might be facing. Some of the very common issues, it's one of the most common ones we see over and over again, is content issues dragging the rest of the website down, where they've done random things in the past and then essentially they're setting themselves up for failure. And even though they might get initial growth, they then drop off drastically when Google starts to turn against them because they don't like the type of content which they're putting out. And you're going to see how this pans out and how it's already impacting this business. Whereas if they fix it and they start publishing and promoting a lot of content, they can massively explode their traffic. But we would expect here to see like 5, 10, 20x traffic growth here and just absolute massive ROI. Okay, so let's dig in and take a look at this business and this little proposal here. Hey, I'm Chris Mudge, founder of AmpiFire, and I help businesses drive organic traffic from search, social, video, and more so that you can make more sales. And Dylan's asked me to take a quick look to tell you kind of what we can do and what we can project and what we can promise. Before I do that, I want to point out some issues that I came across and we just done some quick analysis, the kind of stuff that we do during the onboarding, right, when you join with us. But I just kicked this off just since you'd asked for us to analyze what we could do, not something that we normally do. But Dylan had asked politely for this. So just to show, this is all of the pages here. So I've gone through and identified all of the pages that you have on your website. And so there's some serious issues here. You've got here, it says 1,626 pages. And so if we actually look at how many pages Google's seeing, right? So for example, just on the blog here, if we ask Google how many pages it sees on the blog, it sees 152. Okay. And according to our analysis, it might be even lower than that. So about actually 50 pages, where in reality, you've got about 500, several hundred pages in the blog alone, and across the entire site, 1,600. The reason for such a high count is that, for example, for every blog post, it's duplicated 5 times in a different language, except that the translation isn't working. So it's essentially in the same language. And so that's just a headache for Google. And you're in the process of the site being punished, and you're going to start to see your traffic go down soon because of issues like this and related to this. And so this is why here that you're starting to see this leveling off here at 50 pages, because this is Google saying, I give up. It went to index them. You can see this jump here, this yellow line. And then it said, I don't like what I see. I'm going to start ignoring all the content or most of the content on this website. And you're really going to have to persuade me very hard if you add a page that I should include it. Okay. And so you're seeing actually across the entire site a decline. So all of this excessive content, some of it's low quality, some of it's duplicate, is causing Google to give up on your website. So where you've seen this great growth here, it's now leveling off. And so the projection of where you're going to go, it's either going to go sideways if you're lucky, okay? But much more likely, it's just going to completely drop off here, right? So you're just much more likely just to see this begin to drop down. This is what we normally see in this situation. And then you'll usually like level out somewhere lower. And the longer this goes on, the harder it is to get out of this mess. As in, now is a good time because you're still trending sideways. Once you start to trend down, you could be looking at extending the time it takes to succeed with organic 6 months to a year, because Google is very slow to change its mind about a website. And so, this is where your traffic's been on the increase. This is great. It's been pretty steady through 2024, despite you having lots of content, and it's essentially disengaging because it doesn't think the website is good. Okay, and so that's not my opinion about the website. This is just how Google's algorithm sees it, okay, because it's looking for certain things. Google's not the only search engine. It's not the only way that we send traffic through, but it is something to pay attention to, okay? And so, for example, like you have all of this content, some of it's been published quite a while ago, so Google will expect you to refresh this content as well. That's something that we also handle. And, if we take some of these here, so if you scroll down and we look at some of the duplicate pages here. So let's just so this one, for example, has in the URL here ZH. So this is something that you'll want to fix and get rid of. I think if you fix and get rid of this, you're going to see an improvement without needing to hire us or do anything. It's just something that you could go ahead and do if you wanted to do. And so, you've got this content here, which is supposed to be in another language, but is actually in English. And you've got this throughout the entire site. Okay, so it changes like the menus, but the content is still the same. So it's almost pointless having these additional pages, it doesn't help in any way. In fact, it's hurting you. And this is also true on the product pages as well. So Google doesn't like that. Plus, when I've gone through this, just a glance at some old outdated content, some kind of pages that you probably don't really want to have live, and they're also against you. So one of the things we would need to do when we start is doing a full audit of all of this content, what we're going to remove, what we're going to update, what's got potential. And that's a pretty standard thing. We do that every year. For a site that's already in distress, like Mayfair, we need to do that immediately when you come in. Because if you leave the issues too long, then it gets harder and harder to address things. So, having a look at the situation then. So, we see that there's issues with some quality issues with maybe the content being a little bit outdated. Some of it may be, not being so relevant anymore, right? With, like, I saw a post, for example, that's just a list of social profiles. Google doesn't like that stuff. It should be in the menu bar. And then we've got this here, the severe indexing issues, which basically means Google is choosing to ignore like 70, 80% of the pages on your website, and then is just essentially gradually disengaging and giving up and making the assumption that everything on your website is going to be bad unless it's like a really, really popular page. So this means if you just continue doing what you're doing and carried on publishing blog content, get anywhere, you're probably just going to continue to be punished and ignored. And so we need to change this and get Google liking the website, realizing it's fresh, it's updated, it's not full of excessive pages that don't need to be there. And then Google will change its opinion. Probably this is going to be a 1 to 3 months shift for Google to address this. But if you leave it, you leave it 2 more months, 3 more months, that could be a year, even 18 months at some point. Okay, especially like once it's gone in decline. And so, we have seen that with clients before when they've got these major issues, and maybe for whatever reason they're holding us up to fix this stuff, and then they get themselves in a bad situation. So you want to address this as soon as possible. But good news is we've caught it at a good time, and it's 100% solvable. Nothing complex or additional cost or anything like that. Just normal part of our cleanup process that we do every year with the site anyway. So we just kick off with that. The other issue we've got is the low CTR from the blog here. And this is just like if we look at some of the blog content, right? You take say one of these posts here. Okay, so this one is translated. So it's the first one I've seen that's translated. Okay, but let's go back up to the non-translated ones. But even though they're translated, it's not indexing them anyway. You have to be very, very careful with translated pages and structure it properly. And so you probably want to stop doing that to begin with and then add it back in once you've figured out how to do it. But if we take, say, this one right here, 5 benefits of sleeping on silk fitted sheets. Okay, this is also, again, this is supposed to be in Dutch. Okay, but it's in English. But if we look at this, one of the issues here is, okay, you've got a nice view collection on here, but every post I see, it's a bit different how it's presented in terms of getting the click through. There's ultimately 1 or 2 ways which will get the maximum amount of sales for you. It's not this here. There's other ways to embed the products into the page. We like to have a big box right in the middle of every blog post to get the maximum click through so that people actually click through and make sales, because they could read this, click back, go buy from somewhere else. So you want to make sure it's got lots of prominent links to actually convert. So we could improve that. It's going to at least double the results of what's coming from these pages, plus the blog also needs, and the site in general needs, some promotion. And that's one of the things that as well that persuades Google to pay attention, right? So these are all easily fixable issues, just standard stuff which we do. Now on the opportunity side, you still got, even though you've got a lot of content which isn't being indexed and you've covered a good chunk of topics, I would say maybe like 50 to 100 real topics on the site, there's still thousands of topics that you can have. And you also have been in an overall positive momentum that's just beginning to level off. But because you've had that positive momentum, from my experience, it means that the most likely thing that's going to happen is that you do see, this momentum which you've got here with the blog, is we can maintain this to keep going up. And with the site leveling off, we'll remove some of the pages, and Google will tend to respond pretty quickly. When you remove pages, it starts to pay attention. It sees that you're updating, and it will come back relatively quickly. If you catch it early enough, you remove the pages and you're adding good content. And so we should, expect to see this probably go along for, a little bit of a while. But then once it kind of reacts to the lost pages, you're going to see an initial jump. Okay. And then it should just kind of resume the uptrend, which it had been doing. Okay. So it wouldn't be unusual here for, your whatever traffic level you're at. These are just estimates at about 7,000 per month. It's probably more like 15,000 to 20,000 just from Google. It's not including the other sources of traffic which we send. Then, it wouldn't be unusual to say in the first 6 months to a year that you would at least double that. And I can expect that to go significantly higher than that based on previous experience, but it's hard to say exactly how these things will pan out. Depends how well, we work together, if we get content published quickly, if there's not blocks, that sort of things. A lot of that depends on you, and also providing with as much information as possible. And, just to look at the number of topics here, just to give you a quick idea, we haven't worked together yet. We haven't really dug in and, understood the brand fully and done our full research, but just doing some of the faster approaches here. This isn't, say, using any keyword tool which comes and gets this stuff. This is figuring out how people will actually research before they buy from you. Okay, so some of the topics, all of these would make it through. We'd probably reject maybe about half of these. So, half to a quarter of them probably wouldn't make it through. But you can see here already, to come up with hundreds of topics isn't an issue. So there's so many different things which we can be covering here, right? And so the fact that we haven't got this content out there on your website just means that you can't be ranking it. And, if you've got maybe 50 to 100 good pieces of content that's performing mediocre at the moment, not really performing that well, we can have hundreds of pieces of content with many of them performing really, really, really well for you. And then we just double down on the stuff which is working. So literally within this, we'd have no trouble coming up with, thousands of different topics, given the type of product that you sell and the questions that people have around that. And, also that you're selling, across the UK, but also through Europe. Okay. And also the US, never mind, converting these into another language. Just the English speaking market, you've got a huge potential here. So, looking at that, the thousands of topics, and you've got positive momentum, things are going to move relatively quickly, provided on this as soon as possible. Okay, and you can go verify and check this data yourself. And so this is our approach. This is what we would do. So in terms of expectations, again, as Dylan has said, we can't make any guarantees on specific results. Anyone that would do that with you would be lying, right? So it's business. It's there's no guarantees. So all I can tell you is that we don't take on any brand, any business that we don't think that we can get a very positive ROI for. Okay, and we're in it for the long run, because we don't get a return unless you stick with us for a long run, because it's a lot of work, especially in the early stages, for us to do this, and it's expensive for us to acquire customers in this industry because it's very, very competitive. So we need to have clients that massively succeed and stick with us for a long time to make it viable for us. And we have some special features with what we do, because we have our own unique marketing platform and technology, right, which allows us to essentially create content in all of these different formats and push it all over the internet, right? So we create, repurpose, distribute. So on top of what we publish to your site, we're doing videos, podcasts, reels, LinkedIn posts, authority news articles, X-thread, infographics, engaging ebooks, and so on. Okay, so, and all of this stuff is going out. It's not the only thing we do, but it's a big, big part of it. And because we can do this so efficiently, it gives us an advantage when it comes to promoting the content we publish on your website and have it be even more effective, which is why we can get such good results and do this at a great price. And it's like the case study that Dylan has shared with you here. Just on the blog alone, you can see that just explode up. But you can see here they have the yearly bump at the end of the year. So it's dropped down here, it dropped down there. But this is a massive, massive increase. And this website was in a similar position to you when they started. Okay, so they were slightly more popular, but they didn't have any content issues. However, they were very slow to publish and then made a mistake with their website, which did give them content issues, which put them 3 months back. So I would expect that you would actually see a faster rate of increase. And they're up to now about getting 50,000 visitors on average per month. And this is just from the blog alone, right? This is the traffic value. If they would pay for it, that's what they normally pay for the traffic. In terms of sales that they're making, this is the level that they're at. Okay, it's a higher average sale price than what you've got, but probably also a lower conversion rate than what you would see typically. So, we're very positive that you'd get a very, very significant ROI with this. So, with the content deletion, this is the type of thing which you can see. So the response time for Google here is about 1 to 2 months once you've deleted the content for it to then bump back up. Okay, so we're deleting content around this point. The drop off is just because Google doesn't like it in the first place as a reaction. So it takes about 1 to 2 months to react once we delete the content. So we just always see this: you delete it and it's going to bounce back up. You don't even see a drop. This drop is due to the issues on their website. And so you would be hitting all-time highs in traffic, we would expect, within the range of 2 to 4 months. That's our expectation, not a guarantee. Obviously, we barely looked into it and looked under the hood. Okay, that's what we do once we get in there, but this is as it appears right now. Dylan's shared the packages with you. Given that your site's already got some traction, we would do a little bit less on the offsite promotion with the AMP campaigns, and we do more unique blog posts. And so then it's just a question of how aggressive that you want to be when it comes to publishing the content, right? So, do you want to be doing very high volume, moving faster, gaining to your competition faster, growing your sales faster, which we all want to do, but then it's just a budget concern. So here's an example, like a adapted package here for you. This is a scale light. So this is the 12K per month. You could go for one of the lower price packages. We start at 3,600 a month at the very lowest end. And you can see here, I've just reduced the amount of amps. This would normally be 32 here. I've reduced it to 10 and then given more blog posts. So we shuffle these things around depending what the website needs. And, given the industry, it's going to be quite easy for us to put together a calculator here, okay, which will essentially also build some attention, some links, and be a useful tool for people. So we can throw this in. We'll build this within the first 6 months, which we'll embed on the website. Just a little piece of software, a little calculator. We'll decide exactly what type of calculator it will be, but it's just a useful tool to help people make decisions about, say, their betting or whatever. We would research this and have a specific idea. Okay, and so that's what's included at this level. We'll throw this one in free at this level. You've got other options here as well, and then it's just a case of deciding how aggressive you want to be with the budget. Whatever package you choose, it's really just all the difference it makes is essentially how fast and how high this graph goes up. So if your content velocity is lower, right, then you're going to see maybe this just go at a slower pace. If it's higher, right, it's going to go at a faster pace. And of course, there's a little bit of a delay in the beginning while Google catches up, right? But that's all it is. It's just essentially the more you pay, you're just essentially increasing the speed of the growth curve. Okay, so again, it's just a decision on your point, what you want to do with that. So hopefully that's been helpful. So, we can 100% guarantee the content which we'll be producing. You've got a good understanding here of why the business in terms of organic traffic is in the situation that it is. You've got the risks and the issues here, okay? What's preventing you from growing. If you don't address this, you're going to go nowhere. Okay, so just adding new content to the site isn't going to grow until you address these issues. For us, straightforward fix, we're very familiar with this. And you've got a big opportunity with so many topics, and the fact that you've already had positive momentum, it means that things will kick off more quickly than, say, a newer business or a newer site, that you've got some history. It's already shown Google likes the brand. It just wants you to tidy up the content and the quality. We do that. We're going to be rocking. So let us know if you would like to move ahead. We can go from there. Thank you. All right. So that was some pretty interesting stuff there. So remember, we don't do this, for the average AmpiFire or Amcast user. This is what we do for our larger agency clients who, want to work with us one-on-one. This is the type of stuff which we'll do and dig into and figure out for them. So you're more than welcome to check that out and, try and book a call with us if you feel that would be a good fit for you. But I wanted to show this because, it's a very, very interesting way of looking at, what's actually going on underneath the hood. And, this business had come in and said, we want guarantees. We're not going to work with you unless we have guarantees. And it's like, well, there's a lot of moving factors and we've barely looked under the hood here. And we've already discovered some problems. We need to fix those very, very quickly. But there's also massive, massive potential, right? So I feel very, very confident in this case that we would do an absolute stellar job just blowing this website up over the next year or two, and giving them probably millions of dollars in sales and, a return on spend of like 10, 20, 30 times. It wouldn't be unheard of for that sort of thing to happen. Okay, but it doesn't happen for every business. It depends on the unique circumstances. But this business was well aligned to grow because they have a great product. Their website overall was pretty well put together. Okay, and so they're in a place to grow. And there was just a ton of topics that were low competition that we could cover and saturate with, which we would dig in and really figure out. And so, if you're interested in this sort of stuff, check out another video on our channel called How We Quietly Made Millions in Sales with 110 Boring Pieces of Content, so that you get a better flavor for like the exact process that we've done in the past, right? So this case study is even a little bit old, but it shows you the exact process that we do that currently still just absolutely crushes it. And we're just getting better and better at this. And so, you can take this, you can look at it, you can apply it to your own business and see what we're doing to help businesses grow their free organic traffic. So check that out.